welcome again to one of ANTOR's 70th anniversary podcasts, talking to our members about ANTOR and about their careers. Today, I'm delighted to have Amanda Burns, Chief Executive of Visit Jersey, with me. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat about her career and also about the lovely island of Jersey. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Alison. Delighted to be here, and congratulations to everybody in ANTOR on the 70th anniversary and the podcast series that you're broadcasting.
Thank you. Yes, I hasten to add, I have not been here for 70 years. Make sure that's very clear. But I have enjoyed the past 10 years working with ANTOR and seeing it grow. So talking about careers, let's have a little chat about your career first. I know you've joined Visit Jersey relatively easy, but during challenging times. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how you got into the role you're in now and what you were doing beforehand?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, I mean, I suppose, along with a lot of listeners, travel is pretty much in my DNA. I suppose it started from before my professional career. My parents, grandparents were adventurous travelers, sort of visiting places that weren't on the tourist map at the time. And I think I've inherited that. From an early age, I was privileged to live and study overseas in the Gulf, which gave me amazing opportunities to travel and also meet fantastic people from so many different countries and cultures. And I think that really inspired me to get into the travel industry. I suppose from my first professional experience, before going up to university, I took a year out, as a lot of us do, and I found myself working for a small travel agent and tour operator who, for those of you that might remember, specialised in reader holidays. And I think that really sort of that got me and bit me with the travel bug, and it changed my career path from, I was originally going up to read Arabic and Islamic studies to a degree in marketing, which then helped me to cut my teeth in the transport sector as a product manager for rail cards and working for BritRail, just when the railway industry was transitioning from public to private ownership. So that was a really interesting time. And then that led on to working in the airline industry. For those of you that may remember, British Midland, which rebranded to BMI. I was working there in the marketing team during a period of huge change for the organisation and the business and the industry at large. So, from launching long-haul services to North America, that digital sales revolution and shifting channel of sale, to having to deal with, the aftermath of 9/11, recovering the business and competing with the rise of the low-cost carriers. So it was very much a challenger brand that didn't always have the budget to invest, but had really passionate people working within the organisation and listened to customers and built the product and service around that. And then from there, lucky enough to continue working, marketing amazing brands and destinations around the world, from Tourism Island, Great Western Railway, and most recently, delighted to be here in Jersey and privileged to be working for Visit Jersey.
Wow, that's an exciting journey. And I have to say that we've, as I personally have, and also my family have, very fond memories of Jersey as a holiday destination. I apparently, as a child of 3 years old, screamed all my way there and all the way back, but loved it while I was on the island. That's my mother's input for Jersey. But we have been back many times and had some fantastic family holidays there. And with the zoological gardens and research centre and everything, it's Gerald Durrell and everything. It's a lovely place, and thoroughly recommend it to any listeners that have, for whatever reason, not managed to come and visit Jersey. Interesting you say about Arabic studies. I'm actually trying to learn to speak Arabic now, so I think you did better off taking marketing.
Yes, I didn't get beyond Salam Alaikum, I think.
Yeah, so it is much harder than you imagine, but there we
Indeed.
go.
Yeah.
So you talked about how you started your career in the industry, and yes, BMI I do remember fondly, as well as a lovely airline. And I think this is something that we've both probably got in common when I ask you how your journey has been as a female in the industry. And I do feel that personally, with diversity issues increasing across all different sectors of the population, you feel you can relate to different people's challenges, having had to fight a little bit as a female and always be a bit better than your male colleagues. Did you manage to find that, or did you find that that sort of had passed you by and you were behind the pioneers, so to speak?
It's really interesting, and it's a question that I'm asked a lot in terms of my career path. And I have to say, I've been really lucky. I've never felt held back in my career because of my gender. In many ways, it's ironically opened up more career opportunities, sometimes in the most unlikely of places. So I think I've been really lucky there. I think the travel and tourism industry, I mean, it really is one of the most progressive industries that welcomes everyone and embraces diversity. I think it's the very nature of the business that we're in. It's about learning and building those relationships. That doesn't mean that there aren't any challenges, and obviously there are obstacles that others face or have faced and are still facing and establishing themselves in the travel arena. And I think it's true to say that there's still much more that needs to be done to embrace sort of different behavioural types and leadership styles, where sometimes unconscious bias or, you know, might unintentionally influence appointments, particularly at senior and sort of C-suite levels. So I don't underestimate it, but I do feel very lucky in the career path I've had and the opportunities. And I believe that, you know, change is afoot and it's going to become even better, and there's going to be even greater opportunities. I've been really lucky to be supported and encouraged and developed by some truly inspirational leaders. And I genuinely believe that for anyone with the passion and ability and ambition, the sky's the limit. So I think we're lucky to be working in the industry that we're in. Change is afoot, and I'm really keen personally to support and encourage people coming up on their career journey on that roadmap.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with you completely. I think this industry is just full of passionate people. You never meet anybody in our industry that is not absolutely passionate about it. And it can be a career for anybody. You know, you can be an electrician and still be in the tourism industry, because there are people that specialize in different types of products in our industry, or you can be an accountant or a lawyer or a marketing person. So it really is a vast industry and open to everybody. So that
really is. I completely agree, and I think it's, you know, it's an industry where you stay in touch with people. You know, I've been in the industry for a couple of decades now, and it's amazing, you know, those connections and that network of people that you worked with at different points in your career that you come back and you stay in touch with. So it's a real privilege to work in this industry, and it's, you know, it's the most fun and the most enjoyable. It comes with some huge challenges and responsibilities, but I think it gets into your blood, doesn't it? And it stays with you.
Yes, absolutely. And talking of challenges, have there been any loaded question here, bearing in mind where we're at today, but have there been any challenges and or opportunities, of course, that you've encountered over your career path, or even in the last couple of years, really?
Oh, constantly. I mean, I think this is what makes the industry so adaptable and so resilient. It's kind of built into our way of working, isn't it, Alison? So, you know, if I think about my experiences, you know, recessions, obviously you have to adapt to that, you know, technological changes, but, you know, global shocks, geopolitics. So, you know, I remember at British Midland, we rebranded the organisation to BMI, and we were going long haul and transatlantic. And then a few weeks later, 9/11 happened, which was just such a catastrophe. But, you know, we resolved, and we were resilient, and we built back stronger, and we learned a lot from that. And I think most recently, you know, the pandemic has also been another case in point. So I'm a strong believer that, what do they say, out of adversity comes opportunity. So we learn from the challenges and we build those opportunities for the future. I mean, I accepted the role as chief executive at Visit Jersey 1 month before COVID struck in the UK, and, you know, having to work out my 6 months notice during that period, not knowing how the pandemic would would pan out was pretty daunting. But then I reflected, it doesn't matter whether you're new to a business or, a veteran within an organization. I think having to deal with COVID, it was the same challenge and so daunting for everybody, irrespective of how long you'd worked in the business. And I think, again, it just sort of underlined as an industry how we came together and come together and support one another and learn and build back stronger for the future.
Absolutely. And of course, 9/11 highlighted the importance of global terrorism, which had not been perhaps taken on board by certain countries as well as others. And now I think that the pandemic has very much highlighted the challenge of sustainable travel in view of a need to reduce carbon emissions. And that message has been really highlighted throughout COVID as people have learned not to travel and to enjoy an environment where perhaps there's not so many cars around and things. So there's as a positive that's coming out of a difficult and challenging situation. But let's go back to Jersey. As I said, my fond memories of Jersey are there. And we've mentioned that you've joined Visit Jersey fairly recently. So what sort of structure did you find there? What's the purpose of the organization? And have you managed to make any changes yet, or do you envisage changes, or are you very happy with what you've taken on board?
Well, I can tell you what I didn't envisage was a pandemic before I took up the post. So, inevitably there are going to be changes afoot, as all businesses are going to have to adapt and look forward to the future. I mean, I was appointed in July 2020. So I think what really appealed to me about Visit Jersey and about the island of Jersey is it's a pretty young organisation, Visit Jersey. It was established in 2014, and the purpose is pretty much to market the island to visitors. And I think what really appealed to me when I was sort of applying for the post and looking into the organisation and doing my due diligence about Jersey was the ambition of the organisation. I mean, already, in such a short period of time, it had set out really ambitious targets for growth with a very clear vision for how to achieve that. We've got an amazing team within Visit Jersey, small number of people, 19 of us, but so passionate about Jersey and genuinely care about the visitor economy and the impact that that has. So it's a real privilege to be working here. My role is really to enable the team to be the best that they can be and to focus on recovering the tourism industry in the island and really try and future-proof the visitor economy to encourage more growth, productivity and sustainability for the future. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the last 18 months. There's a lot to do and a lot that we should be focusing on, as well as sort of recovering from the last 2 years. But I'm optimistic and positive about the outlook.
Fantastic. And that brings up one question that's sort of up in the air in the industry at the moment, as in DMO. Whether you're a destination marketing organization or a destination management organization. Would you call yourself a DMMO, which might be the future of the word?
I'm going to be controversial and say, you say tomatoes, I say tomatoes. I think, ultimately our purpose here is to promote the island, but in a sustainable and productive way. And I think that covers quite a range of responsibilities, obviously marketing being at the forefront of that, but we're also, trusted advisors to government, to industry, to the travel trade, and, working with partners across the industry. So there are various, facets to what we do as an organisation, but we are here to contribute to the quality of life for islanders in Jersey and to ensure that, we attract visitors and keep that growing and they have a fantastic time while they're in Jersey.
So talking of that, I'm assuming you've moved to Jersey, or are you working remotely?
No, I moved. I packed my bags and caught the ferry over at the end of July. I remember leaving in 2020 when the UK had just introduced face masks and the restrictions. I think we were coming into wave 2 of the pandemic, and the restrictions were becoming more and more strict, and it was very, very concerning. And I remember sort of arriving into the port in Jersey and having my PCR test, and then just sort of almost this sense of freedom in terms of what Jersey was doing, free PCR tests, such a warm welcome on arrival. And I've been here for the last 18 months. I have travelled back home to Leicestershire from time to time, but no, I am here in Jersey and really privileged to be here and loving the island life here. And it is such an amazing place to be. I mean, it's for a small island that's sort of 9 by 5 miles. It really packs a big punch. I'm still discovering the place. You know, its history and culture is absolutely fantastic and fascinating. And the range of experiences on offer is spectacular. So I've been hugely welcomed, so warmly welcomed, particularly by the industry, who have, you know, had such a horrendous, torrid time over the last 2 years. But I just remember the warm welcome that they gave me, and you know, did everything they can to sort of help settle me in, and help me to understand Jersey and to put a plan in place to recover. And yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 18 months. So I'm here and enjoying all the stunning landscapes that we've got, the fabulous beaches, miles of walking and cycling paths. And as I say, it's a great year-round destination as well, which perhaps people don't always think of for Jersey. So I'm really keen to spread that message and stretch the season here.
Yes, absolutely. And it's great for short breaks and long vacations. And even perhaps remote working for a few months, which could be fun too.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask how Jersey's recovering from COVID, but I think that's a bit difficult for everybody at the moment to answer. But what would your plans be and your vision for the next sort of, and again, you know, we're talking about 5, 10, 15 years, and obviously that goes right into CO2 emission reduction. But what are the plans for Jersey in the next few years?
Yeah, well, I should just talk about the next couple of weeks, actually, if I may, and if you'll indulge me, because you know, in terms of where exactly we're going to land, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, so that is quite difficult. And it has been incredibly hard for the island, our industry and trade. But on Friday, you know, there was fantastic news from the government of Jersey that with ministers announcing the lifting of travel restrictions for all passengers, whether vaccinated or not, no tests, the removal of the pre-departure travel form, all from the 7th of February. So this is really exciting news for Jersey. We're open and we're looking forward to welcoming more visitors in 2022. I suppose in terms of the next 5, 10, 20 years, it's all about the long and the short of it, isn't it? So we're very much looking at the short term, the medium term, and the long term. In the past year, you know, as well as responding tactically and reacting as we needed to protect our tourism industry, we've also been trying to focus on the medium to long-term strategy. And as I say, I can't be 100% precise about where we will eventually land, particularly in the long term. But at Visit Jersey, we undertook quite a lot of significant strategic reviews last year, from sort of diagnosis and understanding the changing market landscape to segmentation work, targeting and positioning to reflect the changes and opportunities for Jersey. So we're also looking at future forecasts for visitor stays and what the needs of our customers are going to be, so that we can optimize supply and demand. And as I say, we don't have all of the answers at the moment, and in the current climate, exactly where we land, we can't be precise. But I think it is important to have a vision, a sort of, I suppose, a guiding star to head towards, even if we need to sort of reroute a few times along the way. And at Visit Jersey, we are looking forward to rolling out that new strategy that we've started to put in place already, in terms of identifying our best prospect or prospective visitors to the island, our positioning, but also looking at a longer term destination plan for the future. Don't have that to share with you at the moment, but certainly in terms of the market research that we undertook, we think there's a very exciting opportunity to tap into Jersey's best traveller prospects for the future. The quantitative and qualitative research we undertook identified who we should be targeting, and we tried to match that with what the island can offer visitors and which segments it would appeal to most of all. And the good news is that by looking at motivation and appeal of the destination, as well as those more traditional demographic mapping techniques, we've identified a much larger pool in our source markets that we're going to be promoting to.
Wow, that all sounds very exciting. So we'll just watch this space, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, it's underway already. You know, the positioning of Jersey, thinking about sort of what taps into visitor motivations and inspires them. We launched our Jersey Curiously British campaign over the Christmas holidays, and already that's landing very well. And we're tapping into new consumer segments, from authentic adventurers, culture chasers, easy explorers, even to more aspirational groups like the moment makers, who tend to be sort of, you know, influenced by others. I think there's real opportunity there for us. So it's just the start of the journey, and it will take a few years to be fully optimized, but the results we've seen so far are very promising.
That's fantastic. Well done. And from a ANTOR perspective, Jersey's been a member for as long as I can remember, and have sat on the board at several on occasions, and been very engaged with ANTOR, and that has continued during COVID and over the past 10 years. So as such a strong and supporter of ANTOR, what do you consider to be the main benefits of membership?
Well, as I say, I mean, congratulations to everybody who's been on the journey for, since 1951, ourselves not included at the start of that journey, Alison. But it's a fantastic story, and you know, there's huge value to Visit Jersey, and I think probably more than ever, you know, sort of dealing with the crisis of COVID-19 and the pandemic and the uncertainty, I think that underlined the main benefits of ANTOR membership more than ever. You know, particularly in supporting your members during the crisis. The one thing that, you know, that we've become much more attuned to is insights, visitor trends, understanding the motivations and what the behaviours of consumers are going to be and how they're going to change. And I think it's been invaluable being a member of ANTOR particularly during the last couple of years, where we've had that support from you. You've provided a forum for members to meet and exchange ideas and ask those difficult questions. And, you know, we don't always know the answers, but I think it's really important to have that dialogue and debate. And, you know, I touched on this earlier on, but forging those close relationships with, you know, all sectors in the travel industry. And we've definitely benefited from that, both at a general level, but, you know, specifically over the last 12 months, you know, we visited Belfast for the ANTOR Meet the Travel Trade Roadshow, which was a brilliant opportunity for Visit Jersey to have a presence in the Irish market, meeting with key Irish trade partners and updating us, you know, on the island and discussing opportunities to work together. I think the presence that ANTOR's had in terms of our online travel trade platform, again, gives us, you know, that exposure throughout the website to encourage the trade to complete Visit Jersey's training and to learn more about Jersey. And your website, you know, ANTOR's website, a fantastic platform to share Jersey's current travel requirements to the industry, from, you know, FAQs through to that inspiration and hearing what's happening in Jersey as travel reopens.
Yes, and haven't we been a privileged and lucky industry to have so many different entities providing us with that research? I mean, we've had our fingers on the pulse throughout the whole 2 years of COVID almost now, because basically we've been supported by all these research companies that have been following consumer behavior avidly, which has been brilliant, and thank you to them as well. So going right back to the beginning of our conversation almost, what advice would you have for aspiring female travel leaders, or just aspiring leaders from diverse backgrounds, if you prefer?
Yeah, I think I would prefer to give advice for anyone, really, and I'm always looking for advice myself. So I suppose, you know, we're all learning and you know, developing as our careers progress. I suppose the advice I'd give is, look, it's really important to have the ability to build and motivate teams, to have a vision, and to communicate that really clearly to them. And I genuinely believe that you're only as good as the team that you work with. So that's so important. I think I may have talked about this earlier on, but sometimes, you know, particularly in the last couple of years, we don't have the answers to everything, but it is really important to know the right questions to ask, if you like, from the right people. And then as a leader, it's down to you to be prepared to make the difficult decisions, which can be tough. I would say it's not a journey, it is a journey, it's not a destination. And I think the learning for me as I sort of, took on more management responsibility and became, stepped into that leadership role was that, the shock for me was technical brilliance in a specific field doesn't automatically translate into great leadership. So you've really got to prepare yourself for a long learning experience, to make mistakes along the way, but to learn from them. And I suppose, be humble but confident, kind but brave, and above all, be accountable for those that you lead, and to those that you lead. And finally, enjoy what you do. Have a passion for what you do, and make sure you live and enjoy every day you can.
Fantastic advice, and I will try and follow it. So as we come to the end of our podcast, one of my last questions was around sort of what changes have you witnessed during your time in the industry, and what are your predictions for the future, other than flying to the moon, obviously, from an airline point of view?
Well, this is a really fun question, actually, in terms of predictions for the future, and be interesting to see whether in a couple of years or decades' time how accurate I was or wasn't. I think what we've learned is the pandemic's escalated change beyond anything we'd anticipated, and as hard as it's been and heartbreaking for so many people, there's been some fundamental societal changes that I think we all need to embrace. I think the two key predictions I've got, and what the first one really isn't a prediction, it's going to happen. It's just how we deal with it and how quickly we focus on it, and that is around sustainability and caring for the environment in which we live. The footprint that we leave is so important for future generations. And you touched earlier, Alison, on carbon emissions and sustainability, and Jersey's got really strong ambitions for carbon neutrality, and Visit Jersey has a key role to play there, as we all do around the world. So I think that's absolutely critical. I think the second prediction that I've got, which I find really exciting and also very challenging, bit of a head scratcher, is the 4-day working week, because I genuinely believe that is an inevitability. I think it's a massive opportunity for our industry, but it does come with challenges about how this is going to be managed, particularly from a business perspective. I think most people listening would probably aspire to a 4-day working week. I know I would. But we also want services 7 days a week. So how do we adapt to that? More people are working from home. That blended working office environment is, I think, going to stay with us. And I think that's going to put more demand on travel in our leisure time. So I think that's a great opportunity. But there are big questions that need to be answered in terms of how we address it. And do you know what? I was looking into this, and it's less than 100 years since the 2-day weekend was introduced. And I'm sure that leaders of the time and governments of the time had those questions that they needed to ask. I think Ford and Boots were at the cutting edge in terms of leading the 2-day weekend. And what they found was, it did result in greater productivity. So it'll be really interesting to see how this pans out, how quickly it's adopted. I know that in the UAE, the government there is already adopting 4.5-day working week, and countries around the world are really keen to look at that happiness index in terms of economic measurement. So it'll be really interesting to see how that evolves. There are going to be lots of challenges along the way, but I think it's a really exciting time and a great opportunity for the travel and tourism industry, and one that we should be at the forefront of developing.
Absolutely, because a 4-day working week gives you a 3-day weekend.
It does,
and
indeed.
So much more leisure. And I'd actually looking forward to having a 4-day weekend and a 3-day working week.
One day at a time, Alison.
Personally speaking, I hope they don't have to wait another 100 years for that.
Exactly.
Because job sharing can be equally as beneficial too. That's fantastic, Amanda. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and all your insights. We look forward to seeing how you develop Jersey over the next 2 years or longer, and speaking to you again. But meanwhile, I look forward to seeing you and your team at our future events. Thank you very much, Amanda Burns, Chief Executive of Visit Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison.